So here we go, elements 21 to 40. Now in the last video, if you recall, I ended up at the bottom of the hill within my memory palace. Now if I return once more, I can close my eyes. I walk the route from my front door, from the first few elements. There I see hydrogen, helium, beryllium, boron, carbon, and so on and so on. I'll keep walking until I reach the bottom of the hill again. Element 21 is scandium. Now this is outside, the huge scanner is outside by a wall, which I can see within the memory palace. Now here I've used the image of a scanner. It's not too difficult to see why I chose this one, bearing in mind the soundlight principle. If you use this image, just make sure you make it weird somehow. Anyone know what scanners could be used for at office parties? I'm sure you get the idea. You've got to make these images weird. Now I've previously used a group of scandal newspapers or newspapers reporting some scandal or another. But this image of the scanner is actually much better, and so I would change that one. And so you may find that in your own memory palace, you change the images as you go along because you think that will stick better. Element 22 is titanium. Here I have the image of the Titanic. Now the key here, if you wanted to use the Titanic, is to make the ship big within your memory palace. It should be very large. Now if you're worried that you'll merely think of the ship instead of Titanic, you can either add the name Titanic on the side, or more easier, add the iceberg to the image that the Titanic collided with. That you'll have no problem then knowing that that's the Titanic, and once you've got Titanic, you've got titanium. If I look to my left, I can see vanadium, or I see a van. It's important that a lot of these elements end in ium, and so the endings will probably roll off the tongue if you are able to just get the first part of the word. Here it's just obvious to place a van. Perhaps it has crashed or something to make the image come alive. Whatever you do, you have to have that van doing something or having something done to it. Once you see van, it becomes easier to add the end vanadium. So if I move on now, I see a road. Now it's important to note that I didn't deviate off my path, I just looked from left to right. But I'll also have elements along my path, such as now, over the crossing. If I walk across the crossing, I see a huge web browser page. The symbol on it reminds me of Google Chrome. That tells me that the next element is chromium. Again, you can use that, or you might think of a use for chrome or chromium. Either way, you'll probably get there quite easily. Now, without leaving the path, there's actually a shop, a furniture store that I can see. And I'm going to look through the windows of the furniture store. And our next element is manganese. Now, at first it might seem challenging to associate this element with either a use or the soundlight principle. But here I've used a crate full of mangoes to nudge my memory. Mang and manganese, all I needed was that initial push. But if you're uncertain that you would get the full word from just having the initial sound, you might try imagining a group of mangoes running around with guns. Then you'd have mang gun. And you're not so far from manganese then. Remember, knees, you could have knees again. The whole process becomes much easier with practice. And you also get quicker the more you do it. The next element is a nice easy one, you'll be glad to hear, and it's iron. Now you'll have 1,000 different images to choose from here, and simple elements like these are a great way to stretch your imaginative skills. This is just one possible choice, but there's lots of them. Like I always stress, and will continue to do so, the image is not so important as what it is either doing or having something done to it. Still images will not work, and it's important that each part is part of itself, a bizarre and inappropriate scene taking place. Now, without leaving the path, I'm just going to look to my side, in fact to my right here, and I see a roundabout. It's like a little roundabout but with an island in the centre. And upon the roundabout is a sack full of corn on the cob. But they are spilling out onto the road, these sacks of cobs, and causing chaos. This is the element cobalt. Cob and corn on the cob. Cobalt or cobalt. Now there's other ways that you could think of cobalt. This is just an idea. So I'm continuing to look in that general direction and I see the pub that lies on the main road. Again, I've not left the route that I would normally take. I'm just looking to my side. Now in the car park of this pub, I see St. Nicholas, Nickel, as he does his rounds, delivering presents to drivers parking up. You might know someone called Nick or named Nick, and that's absolutely fine. You could use him, or you could think of a use for Nickel. But I kind of like using a name here. It feels natural to use Nick and Nickel, but by all means you could use Knickers. So there's lots of ways to do it. Now if I look up to the balcony of the pub that I'm observing, I see a policeman or copper chasing one of the drivers who stole a gift from St. Nick. So you see copper, and I've linked the two images here. St. Nick, Nickel, and I see a copper chasing one of the drivers who stole a gift. So you see, by linking these two images, they're much more likely to remain memorable. Element 30, and this is where a mark should go. This is your third marker. Now if I look down to the wall of the pub, I see a kitchen sink, or the element zinc. Sink, zinc. Now place your marker there. Make sure to visualize something grotesque or strange happening, as you should with all the images. It's probably no good just imagining the kitchen sink. You need something to be happening there. Something grotesque or weird. Now I'm going to return my gaze to the actual path I'm on, and I'm going to walk a little further on. I do this to make sure that I don't crowd too many images in one place. So I've got my manganese, my iron, my cobalt, my nickel, my copper and my zinc. That's enough images for this particular area. I've got to make sure I space these out. So as I'm walking along, I come to a crossroads again, and I see houses to my left. If I look up at one of these houses, on the front lawn is a ship or a galleon. This, using the sound-like principle, reminds me of gallium. Now, if this doesn't resonate with you, or the association is a little vague, figure out one of your own that you feel more comfortable with. Gallium might not work for everyone. It just works for me. And I've used it for quite a while, and it's well cemented. Now, standing adjacent to the galleon ship is the German flag. And thus we have the next element, germanium. Now, if something's not readily apparent for Germany, use anything that reminds you of the country, but look up landmarks, for instance, or tourist attractions. You'll be able to find something that makes the association obvious, but the German flag seems to work quite well. Now I'm going to carry on walking. I cross the road, and I'm going to soon hit another bus stop. Now here I see a donkey showing his posterior end. Here then, in literal terms, I have an ass showing his arse. Well, you get the idea. The element is arsenic. Now remember, you can combine this again. Remember Nick at the end, arsenic. So you could even break up the word and think of something there that makes the image more memorable. But I've used this before, and so it works well for me. There are no right or wrong here, and you're going to have to change a few of these images to make it more memorable. So in my mind, I'm going to walk past the rather rude ass. I'm really walking past hedgerows here. I can feel my feet upon the tarmac, so I can really picture myself. I can even reach out and touch the bus stop, and I can feel the cold metal underneath my hands. It's important that the memory palace is real to you. So walking on, I emerge onto a path which is closing in fast on the mall, but we're not quite there yet. First, I pass a few houses which stand out. Now, they stand out for either two reasons. One is architecture, or because I know who lives there. The first stop is at a house whose occupants are well known to me. Now, outside by where their car should be parked are large stalks of celery. Here, the element is selenium. Celery, selenium. But if you're not quite sure that will work for you, what about using characters from movies? For instance, the character from the Underworld series, Selena. If I remember correctly, that's her name, Selena. So you could use that one, Selena, selenium. But again, there's lots of ways to memorise selenium by creating an easy association. By the entrance of the house is a witch riding a broom. Here, the element bromine is represented by the presence of the broom. Again, just the sound-like principle. Now I'm going to continue my walk past this house, and I end up reaching a large sort of house coloured sky blue on the outside. Remember, I said the houses stand up for two reasons, either architecture or the decor, or they're well known to me. Here, if I look up to the top window, I see Superman is falling from a great height. Now, I imagine that the house is coated in green kryptonite. And here the element krypton is well represented. It's an easy association. Krypton, kryptonite. But again, you can try and think of something else. You can think of a crypt. If you've not seen the Superman movies. Now I'm going to move on past the humbled figure of Superman as he's crashed down onto the ground. And I see a large jewel protruding out of the ground. A large, red, beautiful jewel. This is rubidium, and it split the path, and I'm going to have to walk around it. The red jewel seems ready to infuse and inspire a woman who lifts greater and greater weights in her workout. She's doing workout right by the jewel. She's very strong. And the element strontium is represented by the concept of being strong. Strontium, strong. Again, these associations may be a little bit too abstract, and if they are, change them to something that is easier to picture. The final two elements, then, are housed in my mind within a garage I walk past to get to the mall. It begins by a couple of very large trees. Here, these represent the element yttrium. Yttrium. Remember, our common ium ending and our tree, trium, yttrium. You can almost just get away with saying trium. Here the trees remind me of the sound like that of the part of the end of the element. So next to this is a traffic cone covered in diamonds. Here the element is zirconium. Zirconium. There's the cone in the centre. Now there are other ways to break up this word. For instance, zir sounds like sir. So you can imagine the cone being knighted. Nothing wrong with that. Then you would have Sir Cone. And from there, it's trivial to go zirconium. Remember our ium ending. And since zirconium is element number 40, we're going to place a marker. And with that, we have concluded part 2 of our periodic walkthrough. You have now hopefully constructed a palace big enough for 40 of the elements. Once I've done the number tutorial, how to turn numbers into images, you will find it almost trivial to remember all of these. You will have someone say number 38 and you will automatically think strontium. It will be that simple. So that concludes part 2 of our periodic walkthrough. Thanks for watching. Feel free to post any questions you might have in the comment section. Or if you would like advice, or you would like ideas with what to memorise, just feel free to give me a buzz. Thanks for watching, and please like and subscribe.